All right, at this time I want to invite my good friend and pastor friend. He was our associate minister here for many years. Someone this past week asked Daniel, they said, has everything been mended between Pastor Bennett and Curtis Butterworth? And Daniel says, what do you mean mended? We've been supporting him from the time he left our ministry and went out on his own. We've been supporting his ministry. There's never been a time of schism between. But, you know, the devil wants to do everything he can to say, oh, Joy Fellowship over there. Oh, Joy, you know, Pastor Bennett over there. He's handled us all these years, and now God's getting ready to put us front and center. When we take over that WHAP radio station, the city will have nothing to say but, wow. That's all they're going to be able to say. And so I want to have Brother Curtis Butterworth come up here and share with us today, because we just had an incredible trip to Nicaragua. He went with me for, I think it was 11 or 12 days to Nicaragua. And I want you to welcome Curtis Butterworth today to share his impressions of the trip and his impressions of what this church has done in Kisalaya. He with a very bad back, a troublesome back, went on that 5-hour trip from Puerto Cabeza all the way over to West Palm, and then the next week the plane started flying again, so we didn't have to go all the way back on that bad trip. And it was a miracle that we were able to eat at Denny's halfway between Puerto Cabeza and West Palm. Denny's of Wiwas. Denny's of Wiwas. That's where we ate. Joe ate there with me too, I think. And so it's a joke. It's a joke, folks. There is no Denny's there. There's nothing there. But anyway, we were able to travel across that country, this 90 or 100 kilometers. It should have taken us 4 hours, but we got lost. We got scared, but God brought us out. Can you say amen? So give Curtis a great big God bless you as he comes to share.
It's always good to be back, to be here, and Don and I are glad to be here today. And it was a wonderful trip. I hadn't been able to go in 7 years, so we spent the first 2 or 3 days in Managua up at El Crucero, up at David Ford's place, and had opportunity to see most of the guys from the old days. When we first started going down there, we'd send word down the hill that I would like to see them, and they made their way up the hill and spent a couple hours with us, each one of them, and it was really good to see Jimmy Perez and Alejandro. And in fact, when we went in to see Pastor Lazama, I got Charles to drop me off about a half a block from his house. And I just walked down the street yelling his name, yelling, El Perdito, I'm lost, I'm lost. And he came out like, who in the world is that out there in the alley? And so it was good to see him. We saw Marlon, a driver. We just had a really, really good time there, and was able to, Raphael's been here, right? No, Raphael's not been here. Anyway, Raphael from Cameroon is in Texas. Those couple days, very quickly, when we were in Managua, we went to the TV station and got Raphael, or Charles did, got Raphael hooked up with Brother Osorno, and we had to leave to go to Kisalaya on Thursday, and they were going to be on television on Friday, and everything went great. Charles wanted to be there, but we had to take Saul, the tower man, to Kisalaya to get his job done, so we had to leave early. But things... trying to get maybe 50 pastors. With Osorno, now we've got hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of pastors being hooked up with Raphael, and things just kept falling into place, falling into place, falling into place. Only a movement of God could do that and do that quickly. And so we arrived on Monday. I totally missed the fact that it was supposed to get a little chilly here that next week. And so we started catching word down there that it was cold. It was not snowing there. It was in the low 90s. And so we left. Charles kept saying, well, you know, the plane's going to fly again. It hadn't been flying in a year and a half, but it's going to be flying again. why don't you come over on Tuesday and spend a couple of days in Kissimmee? You won't have to make the trip by truck. And I prayed about it, and I said, listen, you know, I'm 61. I don't want the rest of my life to be a compromise of taking plane trips instead of truck trips because of all the things I would have missed if I hadn't gone on the truck trip. But we flew to Puerto Cabeza. I got to meet Brother Earl, the keeper of the pickup truck. And we got ready to leave, and we noticed that the front grill on the truck was loose. And so we took it over to one of Brother Earl's mechanics, and he couldn't screw it back on. It wouldn't hold, so he had to weld a piece on and then redid the bracket and everything. We got ready to leave. The emergency brake wasn't working. So I want you to know that he spent an hour fixing the bracket and then spent more time doing the emergency brake and charged us $4. I mean, just, you know, who's going to put a welder right there when you need him? And you got to go because you don't want to be on that road to Kissimmee after dark, which we wound up being on the road to Kissimmee after dark because we got lost. But we set off. You drive to the edge of the city, town. Road's great. Well, then there's no road, just dirt road. And it's about 90 miles. It took us 5 hours. I took 680 pictures and a bunch of videos, which I'm in the process of trying to download. And if I can get it all together, then maybe one night or whatever, I can come over and show the pictures and so forth. But anyway, it was Charles and I and Saul, the tower climber. And we get out about halfway. Joe knows evidently where we're talking about. And there's this big old wooden building. You walk across the floor and it's bouncing and everything. And so I took my pictures of the dog and the babies and everybody else, and then we decided, you know, most Americans wouldn't have opened a can of beans in that place. But Saul said, good food. I said, okay. So we had black beans, rice, chicken, yucca, and all washed down by that ever-present bottle of Coca-Cola that's everywhere. Great meal. And then out to the side, it was pointed out to me some of Annette's favorite architecture at the Banos next door. Banos next to this place. And we decided we better get back on the road. So, but bathroom. So we got back on the road. Then we got lost. Then it got dark. And anyway, I've got video of all this. But we got to Kissimmee at dark. Now, if you don't go, even if you see the pictures, it's hard to fathom what's been done. I know you've heard the stories. There's the orphanage building. There's the big building where the radio station is in and the living facilities and so forth. And then on the other end was a big concrete slab with big white wooden posts that I think were put in about 1.5 years ago. And because of the moisture, now they've been short on moisture down there. They're in the middle of a drought. I was reading some yesterday on the internet about how bad the drought is in the livestock and so forth. And the government has actually requested that people start eating iguana because of the protein, because things are so bad raising livestock and so forth. But anyway, between the termites and the moisture, every one of those white posts was rotten, just about. So Charles went through and marked with an X, every other one, take it out, take it out. Well, while we were gone, they decided they'd just take them all out, which worked out for the best. And so we started coming back in with forming up concrete posts to be put in where the rotten wooden ones were. But just looking at the radio building, and of course that's the building we slept in, and we had to sleep on the left-hand side of the building is where you suffer for Jesus because it has hot water and air conditioning. And the other side does not. We were on this side. We left the scorpions on the other side. I have pictures of those where Pastor Bennett's going around with his insecticide killing scorpions. But the radio station... You're not supposed to tell that. Okay, I didn't tell that. They can't get in the left-hand part of the building. Okay, it's just the other side of the building that they can get in. But the radio station is just doing wonderfully. They're talking about up and down the river. We kind of boosted up the power a little bit, and it's clearer, and people are talking about it, and you can tell people are talking about it because businesses in town are starting to become interested in having to buy ads on the radio because they're starting to hear from people about this radio station. And so we did 2 or 3 radio spots for them when we were down there. We did one for, well, before I get to that, it makes more sense to go this way. We spent 2 or 3 days, really the whole trip when we were in town, talking about or meeting various people who are very good to know if you're in a situation like this. So, and everybody's got a nickname. I got to meet Blue, who is the master welder. I got to meet the best mechanic in town. His nickname is King Kong. Then I got to meet Otis. Otis owns Wanky Net and Wanky Pizza Place, so we did some ads for him. And then we went into the electric company to pay the bill, and I was just sitting there chatting with this young guy in his mid-20s, late 20s, I guess, real nice, Mike. And come to find out, I thought Mike was just like a worker, but Mike's kind of a supervisor. And so the 2 utility poles, there's 4 of them on the property, but 2 of them had to be replaced because if it wasn't for the tension on the wire, they would have just fallen over because they were eaten up with termites. They come out and they replaced both poles and everything. And then we needed a 200 amp box connection or something at the house. And so I went over and I said, Mike, how much would you charge for doing that? He said, nothing. We'll give it to you. And so they're going to, when it's needed, they're going to hook all that up. And so, of course, then we did a radio little spot for NL, the electric company. And just all these people, Edward at the little airport terminal. There's a routine for everything that your pastor has. And nobody gets to drive the pickup truck. Nobody, except him, okay? And when he leaves, he takes the battery out and takes the keys, and they're locked up. But the day the plane leaves, we would drive the truck to the airport because they have to weigh you and the luggage because it's only a little, 12 seats, something like that. But then Edward takes the luggage. Oh, Pastor Bennett, so nice to see you. Takes the luggage and locks it up in the back. So then we drive back to the property in the truck, and then about 30 minutes, well, we got into a little urgent thing because we thought we'd missed the plane. But they call the cab, and the cab comes out and picks us up, takes us back to the airport because Edward's guarding the luggage. So all these people that he's met over the last couple of years, we had supper one night at Barry's Hotel where he would stay while they were building the radio station. Very nice guy. Everybody went out of their way for us. I met the Chinese guys at Wang Yip, the combination dry goods and equipment store, and 2 or 3 other places. I pronounced it Misstep, but it's Mistap. I didn't think Misstep was a good name for a hardware business. But Mistap and Blandone, Aura, real rich lady that owns a little grocery store. And she was kind enough to let me make use of her baños one day when it was desperately needed. And just all these people that he's met. Got to see the Messiah's people. That's a whole other story. And go down to the river that separates Nicaragua from Honduras, in the Rio Coco River. And one of the pictures, now, who the kids have been? Okay. I've got special pictures that I'm supposed to show you because you remember when you have to drive through going from Kissimmee to Waspon, you have to drive down through the river? Yeah. The bridge is open. So you'll get a kick out of that, knowing exactly where that place is. So we just met all these people that the Lord has opened up to Pastor Bennett. Sunday, we went over to the Moravian church and stayed until I couldn't sit on those benches anymore. Probably the biggest church, I guess, in the area is the Moravian church. We stayed there for a while and just made contact with lots of people, or reestablished contact with lots of people. And just good reports that people were talking about the radio broadcast. We got to make, I think, 110 minutes of radio broadcast with Joyner, who is a man of many talents, but one of them is he's a mosquito and can speak mosquito. And so he translated. We did 115, 120 minutes in the book of John, and I never got out of the second chapter. And that's how I was told they like it, because they've never heard it but so often, and then they like it. Very slowly, long, detailed. The problem is, as you can imagine, there's not a lot of people that speak Mosquito around the Tri-City area here. So I called the anthropology department at William and Mary to see if they could hook me up with somebody. They're looking, and maybe get in touch with Wycliffe or somebody to see if we could do that, because that would be great if we could do it from here straight Mosquito to Nicaragua. Would be wonderful. And so I have my Mosquito Bible that Charles gave me, and I can say Utla Pauni. That means red. If you ever want to know, if you ever question on Jeopardy, what is, you can say it means red, so you'll know. So it'd be wonderful, though, to be able to speak Mosquito, because that is the predominant language. There's about, according to what I was looking at, there's about 75,000 people in that up and down the river area that are Mosquito Indians. But the radio is just doing wonderfully. I expect it to be even more productive now that they've amped the power up a little bit and signal is clear. I see nothing but blessings coming from that radio station. And David Ford's got his programs coming in down there now, and their favorite program on the radio, some of you will know this, is the program Unshackled that comes out of Moody in Chicago. No, that comes out from Pacific Garden Mission in Chicago. And that's their favorite program. In Spanish, or Mosquito's got a name about this long, so I never know what they're talking about when they say it, but I get the message that that's what they're talking about. So it was just a wonderful trip to be able to get back and get back down there, and then we heard that it was like -2 here, and it's like 93 there. And I would text back here, 93 here, and it's not snowing. And it was just a great, wonderful trip. And I really hope I can put together the pictures and everything so that you can really get a pretty good, I think, a pretty good observation of what things are going on down there. But for 34 years, they've preached the word. They've scrimped, they've saved, they've done without. And people will say, well, what do you have to show for it? If they can't find something to see here, and they don't want to look, to be perfectly honest sometimes, all they've got to do is go to Kisalaya, Nicaragua. And they'll see what's been done. The culmination, or not the culmination, because it's not over. We're just praying to God that it's just getting started. But to see how things have wound up and where they wound up in Kisalaya and Waspon in Nicaragua. And that river has a pretty good current to it. You can see, I have pictures of where they actually have the dugout, long, I just call them canoes. But you can see when they leave to go to the other side, they'll go way up here. They know exactly how far to go before they have to turn, and it carries them way back down to the other side. It's a powerful river, but it's not that far across. And the Mosquito Indians act like they own both sides. It's like Charles was saying, they'll be on the Honduran side, and they'll say, hey, you can't stay over here. You're not from this. Okay, so they just go back over the other side of the river. They get to the other side of the river and get the same speech. They go back to the other side of the river. So they just go up and down the river, back and forth across the river. But up and down that river, which we didn't get to go on any boat trips this time, but up and down that river, there's a lot of superstition. There's a lot of poverty. There's a lot of harsh living conditions that we ask you to pray for them, and especially pray for the children, and especially pray for the little girls. Because if they're not provided with a way out, You know, at 8 years old, they're prostitutes. And so just pray that that radio signal will pierce their hearts and that God will show them a way, a different way for them to survive up and down that river. And I think he will. As Charles said, it was the first time in a year and a half that the plane had flown straight from Wasp Pond to Manawa. So it was about, it didn't take an hour and a half, right, to get back? And I shot lots of pictures. I tried to shoot them out the windows. You're bouncing around, but took a lot of pictures of that. Trip was good going back. Saul, you may have heard Charles mention, is the radio tower guy. He lives right up there where David Ford lives, and he went with us because we had to hook up that equipment, and all the light bulbs on the tower were burnt out. And one of the pictures I have, I think that tower is what, 165? 165 feet. Got pictures of Saul going up the tower with the light bulbs in his left hand, free climbing it with his right hand, and never tethered. And to get the shot, I had to get somebody to stand behind me and put his hand in my back so I could lean back far enough this way without falling over to get pictures of Saul. Now that's a 165-foot tower. In Manawa, somebody just put up an 1,800-foot tower that he free climbs, never tethered, 1,800 feet in the air. And I said, Saul, 1,800 feet, aren't you going, you know, like this at the top? He said, yeah, no problem. No problem. So I got some pictures of that, which I thought was very interesting. But anyway, they got the radio tower straightened out. And you need to pray very hard that God will strike all cows dead that step on the property, so they'll quit tromping down fences and eating the coconut trees and stuff like that. But they're growing some stuff. They're taking some yucca to the market, and they've got tomatoes, plantanos. They're growing and stuff. So things are coming along. But great things are being done at Kisalaya. You might say, well, we just don't see much going on here. Well, that may be true in Hopewell, but there's something going on in Kisalaya. Because believe me, you're not going to run into the building inspector in Kisalaya. You're not going to run into any of those type people in Kisalaya. So you can get done pretty much whatever you want to as long as you don't kill something. Now, I have to tell you that Pastor Bennett does have a new nickname. Chicken Killer Bennett. We were driving to Wasp Pond one day, and some idiot chicken ran across the road and bought it right there in the middle. And I said, you know, when we go back, there's going to be a big sign out there with a picture of some guy with white hair that says Chicken Killer. But the chicken was dead, but we didn't hear anything, and no repercussions about that particular murder incident. But it was a good trip, and I'm glad I got to go back, and I thank Charles for making it possible.